Good day, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. This is Eric from Helps on YouTube Live on Thursday, October 23rd. Glad to have you here. Trust you can hear me okay. So the headline for today, which will be, do I have to pay taxes for debt I don't pay? Okay, am I going to have to pay taxes? For the vast majority of seniors, the answer is no. Okay, I'll explain why. Okay. Sometimes people don't pay debt and a creditor might send them what's called a 1099-C. Okay, that's a tax form that the creditor sends to the IRS. And it's usually the original creditor sends it, not a debt collector. Okay, and all that says to the IRS is that this person didn't pay this debt, therefore it should be counted towards them as income. And you might get a 1099-C in the mail. And you think, oh no, I have to pay taxes on that. Well, probably not, for different reasons. For one reason is there's a form you can file, 984, check a box off if you're insolvent, if you're required to file taxes and you're insolvent. That means that if your debts exceed your assets, essentially, then there's no tax. So you click off box 1B. We've got an email that talks about 1099-Cs, explains it. Okay, if you have a question about that. Now, so let's say for whatever reason you were required to file taxes and you did owe a little bit of taxes. I mean, you could pay it if you want, but a lot of our clients, okay, first off, if your only income is Social Security, IRS is likely never going to do anything or I'm going to try to collect on it. The most IRS would send you a notice saying they intend to offset 15% of Social Security after 60 days. That give you time to contact IRS and get on what's called currently not collectible status. Okay? So I guess what I'm trying to say is it would be highly unusual that a modest or lower income senior would need to pay taxes on a debt they weren't able to pay. Okay? And we always go over that with people, talk to them about it, give them what the law is. But it shouldn't be a problem. So we don't need to worry about that. Now, once again, debt collectors might use that threat to scare you into thinking, oh yeah, I better pay that debt, otherwise I'm going to owe a bunch of taxes. Not so. Once again, we have videos that talk about this. I did one, I think on February 9th from 2 or 3 years ago with one of my former partners about 1099-Cs in detail that you can look on YouTube Live on. But you can call us and we can send you an email that talks all about it. Okay? And then if you owe taxes in general, you may not need to pay them. Okay? As we've talked about here regularly, and we may talk about it later today again. So welcome to our YouTube channel. If you have any questions, you put them in the chat feature. I know some of you like to talk amongst yourselves, and that's fine with me. Just kind of draw to my attention that there's a question, I'll spot it, and I'll be able to answer it. And then what I'm going to do is I read comments people have made either on videos or questions that they've put into helps, or they want to know helps can help them, and so I read these little statements from people and answer them. And sometimes, often what I talk about, I've talked about before, and that's just the way it is, because we always have new people listening to the YouTube channel. And if you're new, welcome. And remember, if you have any questions, you can always call us toll free, 855-435-7787. If you like what we do here, press the like button, subscribe to our channel. That helps get the word out so other people watch this channel. Okay. So this person contacted us from Georgia. They get $1,300 in Social Security and small wages. I was served a summons from LV&V funding. And he owes the money. Okay. If he owes the money, he doesn't have to appear. If he enrolls in helps, we don't represent people in court. We don't talk to the court. We just let an attorney know that You're not going to pay the debt. Your income's protected. And we're going to explain to you why you're safe, why you don't have to go to court, why they can't take anything. And what we need is, if you enroll and you've been sued, we need a first 2 or 3 or 4 pages of the lawsuit. We need to know the case number, the attorney's name and address, so we can send him a letter, the attorney a letter, let him know that you're not going to do anything. You understand they're going to get a judgment, and then remind the attorney of the protected nature of your bank account. As I've explained, your Social Security pension is protected, so is your pension, disability, VA benefits. And then there's a federal rule that went into effect in 2012 that protects automatically from garnishment twice the amount of federal benefits that you get each month. So if you got Social Security of $1,500, each month $3,000 in your bank account is protected automatically from garnishment. Now, if you happen to have more than that in there, still protected, just not automatically. And you could paperwork that could be filed to get that released. This person says that apparently it says his sister-in-law lives with him. She pays entered for rent, and he deposits that into his bank account to which Social Security goes, and he gets a small wage of about $300. Okay. And we explained how twice the amount of his federal benefits are protected, regardless of what other funds are in there. So even the money from his sister-in-law that pays him for some rent, and this little wages he gets, that's deposited in the account to which Social Security goes. You keep it less than twice the amount of your federal benefits. If someone were to sue you, which someone did in his case, and get a judgment, just keep the balance less than twice the amount of your federal benefit, and your bank will protect it automatically without you having to do anything. And he had some equity in his home. We sent him an email about reverse mortgages that he might be interested in. Sometimes we talk about that here. So Ms. H asked, have you heard that the IRS can look into your bank account even if you're not under investigation without you ever knowing? I hope I'm spelling his name right. I haven't heard of them doing that. I don't know how they would find that out unless they got some type of subpoena. I don't think the bank is obligated to report to the IRS unless the IRS files some paperwork asking for some information. I don't think they just call them on the phone and find out. I've never heard of that happening, Mrs. H. Okay. So this person contacts us from Florida. They're 67 years old, and they get a $2,000 in Social Security, and they get a $1,200 in a federal pension. Okay. So both those incomes are federal incomes. The federal pension and Social Security, $2,000 plus $1,200 is what? $3,200. So twice that amount, $6,400. In the event someone were to sue them, get a judgment, and try to garnish their bank account, $6,400 in their account would be protected automatically. If they have person has $40,000 in debt, and they have $1,500 in rent. They got a 2010 free and clear car that's free and clear, and they bank with the credit union, and they owe the credit union money, but they're going to keep paying the credit union on the debt they owe the credit union. And they enrolled with HELPS. Now, if you do have a credit union account and you're not going to pay the credit union account, say you owe the credit union $5,000 and you enroll in HELPS and you're not going to pay that, you don't want to pay that debt, well then we would be telling you to change and have your Social Security or your pension or your retirement income go into a different bank account where you don't owe any money. Okay. Otherwise, the credit union could offset money out of your account to pay the debt that you owe them. Uh, when you signed with the credit union, you gave them authority to do that. Now, banks don't do that except for Truist Bank. But no. Okay. So, person contact. Okay, here's one. Do I need to formally close a bank account, a bank or credit union account? I talked to someone earlier today on this. They were worried about closing their bank account because they have their now they have their Social Security going in a completely different bank account, but they still have a bank account with a little teeny bit of money in it, and they're thinking they have to formally close that account. And I told them, no, you don't need to do that. Okay, if you owe that bank money or not owe money, either way, you don't have to take steps to formally close the bank account. That bank will eventually just close it on their own. But if they don't close it on their own, keep getting statements now, months or years into the future. Don't worry about it. Okay, you don't need to formally close a bank account. If you're not going to use that bank anymore and you don't want to deal with them anymore, just stop putting money in it. And they'll eventually close it. But even if they don't eventually close it, you don't need to worry about it. So if the IRS is looking into accounts, yeah, they're not going to look into our accounts. They would just look at if someone was suspected of some crime or something like that, then maybe they would, but not us. Okay. So this person contacts us from California. Um, they rent, and their electric rates, they say, are through the roof. And they get 1,100 in Social Security, and they're considering a debt relief program. Um, and they say gasoline prices are at $5.46. Her management company at her apartment complex is awful. She hasn't had air conditioning for over a half a year. Applied for food stamps, waiting for approval. She's still on a waiting list for Section 8. Well, you don't need to apply for a debt relief program with that little bit of income. You can't afford to pay the debt. You don't need to pay the debt. Now, you can always call and talk to us and go over your situation. Don't want you to worry. Uh, don't want you to worry. Okay? Person asks, if I have my car repossessed, this is what we talked about at the beginning. The bank can issue me a 1099-C, and I must pay taxes on the remaining debt after my car is written off by the bank. Is this true? No. They can issue a 1099, yeah. Are you going to have to pay taxes on it? Highly unlikely. If you're getting Social Security, pension, disability, minimal income, uh, and you're not required to file tax returns, just forget about it. They're not going to do anything. But if you do file tax returns, then yeah, you may need to file that 1099 form with your taxes, with your tax return. But if you're insolvent, meaning if your debts exceed your assets, which is the case for a lot of our clients, most of them, then there'd be no tax. Okay, but let's say you did owe a tax. If your income is under a certain amount, like if you're a single person, around $2,500 or less, or a couple, $3,500 or less, or even a little bit more, and you owe some taxes. I mean, you could choose to pay it, but if your income is lower, you can probably qualify for what's currently not collectible status and not have to pay those taxes. So just because you owe a debt doesn't mean that you're going to have to pay a tax on it. Highly unlikely that you would. Okay? And if you did owe the tax, like I say, you're currently not collectible status. You may not even have to worry about that. So this person contacts us from California, and they're requesting initial information regarding credit card debt. I'm a senior who had to leave employment due to disability and who's also raising my young grandson. I am no longer able to afford all of my credit card debt. I would prefer information mailed to me and not a phone call. Well, yeah, we've got a packet we can mail to you, but frankly, you get more information listening to our videos or looking at our webpage than you would ever with what we send you in the mail. Okay? But if you're going to enroll, we need to do that over the phone, and it's not that difficult because we have to ask some basic questions, and it's just kind of hard to do that in writing. Okay? So, Seti asks, Eric, you mentioned reverse mortgages. Can you speak on this a bit? I don't really understand them. I get many offers, just not sure of them. Okay, we got a lot of videos on that. You can always call us too, and we can send you an email with a link to these videos. But I'll talk about reverse mortgage for a second. Sometimes I'll talk to someone where a reverse mortgage can make sense, and I'll say, "Have you ever thought about a reverse mortgage?" And they say, "I know I don't want that." And I'll ask them why, and they can't give me a reason, just simply because they don't understand. So I'll just give you a brief synopsis. Okay, so let's say you have a home. I'll give a home that, let's say the home is worth 200,000, and you owe 50,000. Okay, but your payment is $1,000 a month, but your income is $1,600 a month. So you're living off of $600 a month. Things are really tight. Okay, but you have all this equity in the home. So if a person like that decided to get a reverse mortgage, then what a reverse mortgage would do is pay off the mortgage that you have, the $50,000 that you owe. So you no longer have a house payment anymore. Now instead of living off of $600, you're living off of $1,600. Okay, and then depending on how much equity you have in the home, a reverse mortgage could give you a little line of credit that you could access if you needed it. It could help. And then the only thing you normally would be required to do is to maintain the property taxes. You got to live in the home too. And you can live in the home to the day you die. Okay? You could still add someone's name to the title if you wanted to, but you own the home. The only reason you'd have to sell the home is if you move from the home, but you have to reside there. You could live there to 120. Even if you owe more on the reverse mortgage than the home is worth, they can't take your home. Okay? So in certain instances, a reverse mortgage could make a lot of sense. Let's say, for example, you had a home that was free and clear and it was worth $400,000, but you're only bringing home $1,500 a month in Social Security. You can barely survive. Well, if you got a reverse mortgage, that would give you a line of credit of maybe up to half of what the value of the home is in some instances, depending on your age. Okay, and it depends on the interest rate, the current interest rate. And then you don't have to pay that debt back during your lifetime. It gets paid when the home is sold after you pass away. Or if you stop the reverse mortgage sooner, you could pay it. You could pay it sooner. Okay. Bottom line is, it makes it so you can access the equity in your home. Okay. You still own the home. You can still sell it. You can still give it to your kids. The bank doesn't own the home. You do. It's just you're not required to make a payment, and it can pay off an existing mortgage. Once again, we have videos that talk about it. So for some seniors, a reverse mortgage is an answer to prayer. It can also provide to pay your ongoing property taxes. Okay. So there's a lot of reasons where a reverse mortgage can make sense. But yet sometimes I'll read broad statements from people saying they're always a bad idea or something. Well, that person doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay. Yeah. But it's not for everyone. Okay. This person contacts us from Oklahoma and they say they wanted to know, can a credit card company put a lien on my home here in Oklahoma for unpaid debt? Well, someone would have to sue you first, okay, and get a judgment. And in most states, a judgment can automatically be a lien on real property. That means a home on land that you own, normally in the county where the judgment is obtained. Um, Now, it doesn't. It's a lien on property you own, so it's not a lien on a specific piece of property. It's property that you own. Okay, so let's say, for example, the judgment was against the husband, and he owned it with his wife with survivorship, so that when he dies, the property goes to his wife. So if there's a judgment against him, no one can take the property. He owns it with his wife, and then if he passes on before his wife, the property goes to his wife. Because he's dead, he doesn't own the property, the judgment lien disappears. And then in certain states, depending on what the exemption is, a judgment lien can be removed. It can be removed in Florida, Texas, California, depending on how much equity you have in your home. Oklahoma, it can be removed too. It may only need to be may only be able to be removed by filing a bankruptcy. But the bottom line is, if you went to sell the home and wanted to sell it, there's means to remove the judgment lien in a lot of states. Now, in some states, it just sits there. No one's going to take your home if they have a judgment. If they show you have a judgment and you have equity in the home over and above the homestead exemption for the state where you live. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you got a home that you owe 100,000 on and it's worth 300,000, but the homestead exemption in your state is 50,000, well, that means you've got 150,000 equity in your home over the homestead exemption because you owed 150,000 exemption. It's worth 300. You've got 300 minus 150 is 150. You got 150,000 in equity in the home over the homestead exemption. Now, if someone were to sue you, does that mean they're going to foreclose on the home because you have equity over the homestead exemption where you live? It's not the creditor's practice to do that. And we talk about this a lot. We have videos that talk about it. So you're not going to lose your home. Okay? Excuse me. I think I get tighter as the week goes on. Okay. So person contacts us from Illinois. Um, I understand credit cards cannot go after your Social Security, but my question is about a car I'm getting a loan from. I'm getting a loan from an insurance policy. I have questions about buying a cheap used car. I am a senior citizen retired. My only income is Social Security. Also, do you also have a letter that you can give me to my new landlord when I move? Well, okay. About the car. Yeah, you can buy the car. No one, it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to go after a person's car, even if you happen to have equity in it over and above the exemption for the state you live. So no one's going to take your car. Now, obviously, if you have a car and you have a loan on the car and they have the title and you don't pay it, then yeah, they could repossess the car. But we're talking about creditors that sue you, get a judgment on a totally unrelated matter. They're not going to take your car. Um, Now, you're getting a loan from the insurance policy. You're going to have to pay that loan. Um, Otherwise, they're just going to decrease the amount of your insurance that you're going to have. Okay. And they also ask, do you have a letter that I can give to my new landlord when I move? We do have a letter. We call it a landlord letter that explains to a prospective landlord. not a current landlord, but if you were trying to apply for rent, and it tells the prospective landlord that even though you might have negative entries on your credit, all that money is safe. It can't be taken from you. It's available to pay your rent. Okay. So those of you with name change, should you put former name in the comment? Oh, that's on. You're talking amongst yourself. Okay. The person contacts us from Connecticut, and they say LVNV funding is trying to take legal action for a 7-year-old debt. Well, um, they may legally be able to do that because states have what's called statute of limitations that tell them how soon the time limit for filing a lawsuit for a debt that you owe. A lot of times it's going to be 4 or 5 or 6 years. Uh, it could be longer in some states, but it's usually the time limit is from when you incurred the debt or when you last made a payment on the debt. So let's say the debt was 7 years old, but you made a payment 2 years ago, and the statute of limitations to file a lawsuit is 5 years. Well, they go from the date normally when you last made a payment or when the debt was incurred. So if it's from when you made a date you last made a payment, that would be 2 years ago. Therefore, they could, and a 5-year statute of limitations, they got 3 more years to sue you. You understand? Okay. Okay. Person contacts us and they say, I'm 66 years old and judgment proof. Can I still make money doing Lyft and Uber in Texas? As long as I'm under the double amount, I can have my bank account. I don't see people driving for self-employed people driving for Uber or Lyft ever being garnished. Okay, don't see it happen. They're not going to come after your money in Texas or anywhere. Doesn't matter. And the double amount of the money has to do with twice the amount of money in the account to which your Social Security is protected. No matter the source of the funds, is automatically protected. Now the question then is, could they garnish Lyft or Uber? Well, there's a theoretically way for them to do that, but I've never seen it done. So I would not worry about that. So if you want to make money on the gig economy, working, driving, delivering groceries, delivering meals, or using Uber or Lyft, do it. Okay? I don't have a problem with that. Chance of you having a problem is so minimal, not worth talking about. And if you did, we know what to tell you. So this person contacts us from Connecticut. Oh no, this is another one. I am 66 in judgment proof. Oh no, I already did that. Just did that one. Okay, this person's from Virginia. I'm dealing with a lawsuit from Capital One where they already have taken his savings. This is a note from a paralegal here. That helps. That was about $700. Uh, the phone call was cutting in and out, but I managed to get some good information. And okay, so here's the deal. Yeah, if you're getting Social Security or federal pension and it's deposited in your bank account, your checking account, but you also have a savings account, and someone sued you and got a judgment and filed a writ of garnishment on your bank, the bank would have to turn over money from your savings account to the creditor. Now, you probably could file what's called a challenge to garnishment or claim of exemption with the court and be able to show the court that the money came from a protected source like your Social Security, and the court would order that money be released. But to prevent having to go through that, just keep the money in a checking account and keep it less than twice the amount. Okay. So Mike asks, I have 2 credit cards with Chase that I can no longer pay on. My checking account is also with Chase. Can they go after my checking account when I quit paying the cards? Well, okay, here's the rule. Technically, if your only debt is Social Security, then the bank can't offset money out of your bank account into which Social Security is deposited to pay a debt that you owe the bank. They can't do it legally unless you gave them permission to do it, which you didn't. Okay. Now, if you banked at a credit union, unbeknownst to you, you gave them permission to do it. And the same thing with Truist Bank. But all other banks know. Now, let's say you had a little pension going there as well. Well, the way I read the law, technically they could offset the money in your account because you have money in there going in that account other than a Social Security. Uh, um, but do they do that? I don't see them doing that. Okay, so you should be able to keep the same account with Chase. Shouldn't be a problem. Okay. Now, if you're nervous about it, it's not that difficult to change to a different bank. Okay. All you need to do is open a bank account and get the routing and the account number to the Social Security, and they'll see that the funds go to your new bank account where you don't owe any money to that particular bank. Do you follow me? If you don't, let me know. I'll explain it again. Okay. So this person contacts us from Illinois. The daughter called us, and she says she thinks she has her mom's power of attorney. But mom was also on the phone when we talked. We talk a lot with clients, with seniors and their kids. Don't even talk to them by themselves, explain what the law is to kids so they can inform the parent. Uh, it says here, mom was on the phone and heard everything. Client completed intake. We read our paragraphs, quoted the fees, and she enrolled. And I don't know if it was the attorney who wrote this or one of our paralegals. It says, very sweet mother and daughter. Okay, the client, which is the mom, lives in daughter's home and does not have a car or any other assets except her monthly Social Security benefits that are directly deposited into her one bank checking account. She is on her daughter's secondary account, but we discussed that if mom is sued, daughter will remove her from the account, although she says she never keeps much money in the account. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't matter how many accounts you have. It's only a problem is if you're sued. Okay, the mom has about $50,000 in credit card debt, which she is currently making the minimum payments. She will stop making the payments now. Hallelujah. They wondered about her accumulating Social Security money in her one bank checking account, and we discussed the automatic protections versus the protected funds, and she understands that if sued, having to file a claim of exemption and request for a hearing, like I talked about a few minutes ago. So likely will keep cash in a safe at home if she is sued and has excess Social Security in her account. Or she could just keep it in her daughter's name, that excess cash. We emailed them a form email we have on talking about bank account protections and garnishment. They're both very nice and happy to have mom enrolled. So Big Blue asks, in New Jersey, can a judge give a warrant to a court officer to enter your home and appraise your belongings and sell it all to satisfy debt? Sorry, I'm tired. No. I mean, it's theoretically possible that a creditor could do a writ of execution and try to sell that your stuff. I mean, that's within the realm of theory, but as practical matter, it'll never happen. If something like that happened, you call us, we tell you what to do and why. It's not going to be an issue. What do I know? I'm 74, been attorney for what, 46 years. Helps has been around since 2012. I did 20, 30,000 bankruptcies. It doesn't happen. They're not. No one's going to go into your home and try to sell your stuff. Now, sometimes they use a threat of that. A creditor will to try to intimidate you. Um, okay. Now, you could think of something like that happening. Maybe a guy is extremely wealthy, has a lot of valuable property, personal property, you know, but for a normal run of the mill senior, it's not going to be an issue. Okay, let me look at this real quick. Yeah, Mike, you're going to be fine. Connie said, she said I should go take a nap and that you're very and understanding. Well, I may end a few minutes early, but I'm a trooper and I've got things I've gotten written down here. I'll try to just. Before I came here, I had to help someone unload a couch. So I don't know. It's kind of warm right now, but I'm going to hang in there. So thanks, Connie, for for understanding. Okay, let's go on. Person contacts us from Florida. I have two credit cards, a loan from Tally. I don't know who Tally is. Must be a local lender. And a loan from Dividend Finance that have all been charged off or gone to collections. Those are probably high interest lenders. I have been struggling making payments for the last year, trying to keep them out of collection, but I failed. Don't worry. My husband and I receive Social Security and I receive a pension from New York State. Not a lot, but our healthcare premium is deducted from the amount, which we are very grateful for. I just received the first correspondence from the collection agency regarding the credit card debt and requested a validation of the debt. You don't need to do that, but you did it. It's been very stressful, and I hope that you can help. We can help. We're called HELPs, Help Eliminate Legal Problems for Seniors. I don't have any extra income to pay these companies. Thank you very much. You're going to be fine. Okay, your Social Security and your pension from New York is protected. If you don't pay the creditors, even if they sue you, they can't collect from you. And if you enroll in HELPS, we're going to send a letter to those creditors. They're going to leave you alone. Okay, so you don't need to worry. So this person contacts us from California. Um, they got a home with no equity. Uh, they get $5,200 in income, which consists of Social Security and a pension. But they got a $2,800 car payment. Wow. Okay. Person says they have questions about a lawsuit. She's the person's contesting the debt itself. She is contesting the third party's ability to collect from her with no signed contract. Good luck. It's not doesn't work. You can a, a creditor or collector can assign or a creditor can assign the debt to a third party to collect. The law is really clear on that. Okay. Um, she is not contesting the debt itself. Okay. the paralegal, whoever, could explain the laws are written to protect the creditor in this case, and the third party essentially buys the contract along with the debt. Um, we completed intake to assess her protections: Social Security and state pension, buying a home, and owns a car. So we talked about completing the California Homestead Declaration that protects equity in the home, which allows her to sell the home without having to do anything, and she gets the equity out of it. 700,000 in virtually every county in California, and more in some counties, of equity. She owes some IRS debt. We told her how to deal with that. She owes state taxes. She says she wants to repay, but you don't need to repay them. State can't collect from you. We read what we did. We quoted our fees. She decided to enroll and get us her creditors. She's going to be fine. So what about fees? So first off, we don't turn anyone away that needs our help. Okay, our fees are minimal. Most a person would pay would be $40 for 24 months, $20 for 24 months, free thereafter, or $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months, free thereafter, or $20 for 24 months, $10 for 24 months, or free thereafter, based on your household income. Okay? So call if you have questions. That's what we're here for. So this person contacts us from Virginia, and their ages are 69 and 78. I've become disabled and had to quit working. It has cut our income of $40,000. We have $1,800 combined in Social Security and about $2,500 before expenses in an Airbnb rental, which is part of our home. So they rent part of their home to people that rent it for a weekend or something like that. They make a little money from that. They own the home and they have a mortgage on the home of about $1,500 a month. And the spouse has some medical issues. And their bill, they say that their bills have been paid on time until last month. And we have 12,000 each in credit card debt. And wants to know what to do now as we are just 1 month late. I can't afford to pay my diabetes medicine anymore. We have automatic payments coming out, but we took the auto payments off of our credit cards. Nothing is in collections. Do we let it go? We have a few that we put into hardship payment plans with the yeah. What you do is, if this is your situation, if you got debt, you don't know what to do, and you got these assets that you want to keep, and you got this income, you call us on the phone. We're going to ask you questions about your situation. We're going to save it. You can call 2, 3, 4, or 5 times. And if helps works for you, we can click a button and you get rolled immediately. So you don't have to deal with collectors anymore. And reading this one from this person in Virginia, yeah, they're going to be fine. No one's going to be able to take their Airbnb money, the rental money. Their Social Security is going to be protected. They're going to keep their home for a lot of different reasons, and hopefully they're going to have enough income and money now when they're not having to pay this debt to pay for their diabetes medicine. See, that's why Congress and lawmakers protected your Social Security and your pensions. They want you to have money to be able to pay your medicines and your food and your utilities. Okay? It doesn't make any sense for the government to allow people to take your money and you go without your medicine, and then all of a sudden you end up in the hospital and the government has to pay for that. No, so they want you to have your money so you can take care of yourself. So here's one person contacts us from Georgia. Okay, and they're with something called Better Link Debt Relief Program. There are so many debt relief programs. If you're with a debt management or debt settlement company and you're getting Social Security or pension or both, and you were never told that your income was protected, you weren't given complete information. You were in a lot of ways being scammed by a debt management or debt settlement company because they never told you the truth, that your income is protected, that no one could take your money. Why didn't they tell you? If they would have told you that, you wouldn't have enrolled with them and they wouldn't be making money off. Well, anyway, this person from Georgia, let's go. They were served a summons from LVNV funding. They owe the money. We explain they don't need to respond. We send a letter to the attorney that sued you. We don't contact the court. We don't need to contact the court. We don't represent people in court. But we're just going to tell the attorney your income's protected. You can't pay it. We understand they're going to get a judgment, but they can't collect from you. We explain to them that if you enroll, you're going to need a copy of the summons. First 3 or 4 pages of the lawsuit. Sometimes the lawsuits are 10, 15 pages long. We don't need all that, just the first several pages. And we talked to them about some other things. So here's something. We're getting near the end of things I've written down, so we may end up ending early today after all. Why would a credit card lower your limit? When people call and enroll and help, sometimes we'll say, do you have a credit card with a small balance or nothing is owed that you want to keep? The answer is yes. But let's say you had a credit card. Maybe the credit limit was $6,000, and then all of a sudden they lower it to $1,500, your credit limit. Why would they lower your credit? Here's the reasons. Negative changes to your credit score. It says card issuers regularly check your credit. They can do a soft check. A drop in your credit score from late payments on other accounts or an increase in your overall debt can trigger a limit reduction on your card. That's why we always tell people that want to keep their card is don't give them a reason to check your credit. They don't always regularly check your credit. Okay. Another reason they would lower your credit is if they can find that you're using your credit at a higher utilization rate, or if you miss payments. It says even on other accounts. Well, generally a credit card company, they don't care if you don't pay other debts as long as they're getting paid. It may lower your credit limit, but they're not going to cut you off just because you have another debt you're not going to pay. They will cut you off if you're inactive on the account. In other words, you don't use it. You have to use it occasionally where you keep the credit card. And then they may have some internal policies. I don't hear too often with clients that keep a credit card with helps that they're going to keep a credit card, not give it to helps. Now in bankruptcy, if you owe it nothing, even if you owe it nothing, they're still going to cut it off because credit card companies subscribe to a service that lets them know if you file bankruptcy. But with helps, they don't do that. Okay. But normally you should be able to keep the same amount of credit you had before. There are exceptions. I hear about them occasionally, not that often. Okay. They may happen more often. People just don't tell me about it. Okay. But anyway, this person contacts us from Illinois. I'm being sued for credit card debt by American Express. My only income is Social Security. I'll tell you right now, you got nothing to worry about. I saw your video about having to pay it. Should be about not having to pay it. Okay. I'm 76 and barely making it each month as I have a mortgage. What can I do? Well, you don't need to do anything. I mean, if you don't want to deal with the lawsuit, you can roll in helps, give us the lawsuit information. We're going to send a letter to the attorney that sued you for American Express, let them know that your income's protected. They're not going to take your home for a lot of reasons, no matter where you live or no matter how much equity you have in it. Okay, you're going to be okay. Okay. Now, okay, here's one. I'm going to talk about this one later. This person, this is what they tell us. I'm just sharing what they told us. They signed up with Beyond Finance and paid them $6,900. And they said, I know you don't work with this type of situation, but they had over $6,900 of my money when I left them, and they never returned a penny. And as the records show, only paid Wells Fargo $5. Why I left them, and J.G. Wentworth promised to make them pay me, but they never did. So I left them too. But they did return most of the funds, which was only a few hundred. Tried Cordoba Legal, and they never did anything, period, so I gave up. And I told this person to send me the contract with Beyond Finance. I've analyzed it. I got some more questions about it, and then I'm going to share it with people one of these days. So this person contacts us from Minnesota. I'm on Social Security disability. I defaulted on 2 credit cards. My health took a turn for the worse a year ago. I can't afford to pay them. I have no other income, no assets, no car, no property. I need help on what to do. You don't need to pay it. If you don't want to deal with the creditors, you can roll in helps. We'll send them a letter. They're going to leave you alone. We'll represent you ongoing, literally to the day you die, so you don't have to deal with collectors again. Once again, if you have some of these situations where you owe debt you don't want to deal with, call us on the phone. You don't have to pay the debt back. Your income's protected. We're going to help you so you don't have to deal with these creditors. A client from Ohio called us, and they got some discovery questions from the state who they owe state taxes. And I just told them, your Social Security is protected. The state's just trying to intimidate you. Don't need to pay the taxes. The state cannot take your Social Security. And it's protected in your bank account up to twice the amount, just like from a credit card collector, credit card debt, or another type of debt. I've been watching Eric's videos, which I like. My wife passed away, and I'll be getting notices soon, I'm sure. And I would very much like to join your group. Let me know the cost and the best way to pay. Well, call us on the phone. We're going to go over this with you. You don't need to worry. Eric, I noticed lately some messages or questions you do are the same ones as the day before, like the person regarding the $6,900 you just did. Are you telling me that I'm getting dementia? I'm not surprised. I've got so many of these. Sometimes I look at it myself and I say to myself, gee, did I talk about that one before? One reason it might happen is this. So when I prepare for these, I look at calls that I've gotten and they talk with people. Okay, and I write down the situation. Okay, and that may be from 2 or 3 days ago. And then 2 or 3 days later, the same person, they enroll in helps. When I first write the information down, they were asking questions about their situation. And later they enroll in helps. And sometimes I look at people that enrolled in helps and write their facts down and share it. And they're really similar, and they might be almost the same. So that might be what happens here. Okay? So, no, I agree with you. And I'm sorry when I do that. I try to avoid it. A lot of times I'll look at something here that I've written down. I'll say, gosh, that looks familiar. Maybe I said that yesterday or 3. But the reason is some of the things I write down are when people contact us on the internet or they ask questions. Okay, and I write it down, and then maybe that same person calls us later, a few days later, and they enroll, and then I get that information when they enrolled, and it kind of matches what they said a few days ago. So no, you're not just dreaming that. That could happen. But you know something? Most of our clients don't mind hearing the same thing over again. I don't get too much grief over that. Okay. So, Rico, that's why. But I don't mind getting the grief. That you're going to make me more attuned to trying not to repeat the same thing. I know I'm not getting dementia. Okay. I think we've almost come to the end. Yeah, you like hearing it over again. No one has called helps has ever regretted it. Not too many people that I know of. Our clients are very happy to find us. I could tell you a lot of sweet stories how people find us. A lot of them. Some of them almost miraculous. A lot more people need to know about it. So share what we do with others. Press the like button. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comments, and I'll try to address them there. You can look at our other videos. God bless, and I will talk to you on Monday. Okay? We'll see you later.